Joining me now is Keith Kompoltowicz. He is the Chief of Watershed Hydrology for the Army Corps of Engineers in Detroit. Keith, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it. So why don't you go ahead and give us an idea of what you do with the Army Corps of Engineers?
Well, my office releases the official forecasts for the Great Lakes. We do that on a monthly basis. It's a 6-month forecast, and we do that in collaboration with plenty of other federal agencies, and as well as counterparts in the Canadian agencies.
So this is really an international...
It really is, and the collaboration that is ongoing in the Great Lakes with respect to what causes water levels to rise and fall is really grown, especially in the recent years.
So tell us, what do you do on a day-to-day basis in terms of monitoring? How does it all work?
Well, again, we use different data sets from different sources. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the U.S. and the Canadian Hydrographic Service in Canada operates the water level gauges that measure the rises and falls of water levels. And we take that information and apply our own statistical research to it. We also track and follow the major components that cause water levels to rise and fall. And those are the things that make up the hydrologic cycle: precipitation, runoff, and evaporation. And we try to better understand those things and issue our forecasts based on recent conditions of all three of those hydrologic factors.
Okay, before we start to look at those factors that cause the lake levels to be down low, where are we in terms of historic proportions of where the lakes are right now?
Well, all the lakes are below their long-term average. The lake that seems to get the most attention now is Lakes Michigan and Huron, and the Corps considers them to be one lake because they're joined at the Straits of Mackinac. They did set an all-time record low in January of 2013. The water level for any month has never been lower than it was in January. Forecasts done around January and into February showed the chance for continued record lows as we moved into the summer, but conditions were such, especially in April with the extreme amounts of rainfall that we saw, that the lakes have come up significantly but still remain well below their long-term average.
So people who live inland may say, okay, so the lake's a little bit lower. What is the impact of that?
Well, the low lake levels impact different groups in different ways. Commercial navigation is impacted. They aren't allowed, or they aren't able to load their vessels to full capacity. The recreational boat owner and marina owner might not be able to access their preferred marina. The marina owner might not be able to sell all of his boat slips, and the shoreline property owner is going to see much larger beach, and that may allow certain types of vegetation to emerge that the person who owns that lakefront property might not want to look at. They might want to look at a nice pristine beach, but instead they're now seeing various types of vegetation emerge.
So what can be done to help offset some of these low levels?
Well, the study that we do now is really the most important thing from where I sit with the Corps of Engineers. We need to better understand the components that cause lake levels to fluctuate.
All right, so tell me about those.
Well, the increased rainfall, increased evaporation, the things that we've been seeing trend-wise, we are seeing increased evaporation over the past several decades, matching increasing precipitation too. So it's just a balance. Is there more evaporation occurring that is causing lake levels to decline? Is there more precipitation occurring that causes lake levels to rise? It's really the combination, the battle between those two components that really drive lake level fluctuations.
So bottom line, when we're moving forward and you're starting to give your projections for the next year or so, what can be done to change things? Is there a larger plan that the Army Corps is working on to see how we can offset some of these changes?
Not specifically right now. Again, from where I sit with the Corps, it's more of the natural phenomenon that cause lake levels to rise and fall, and we need to better understand those things to decrease the uncertainty in some of the measurements that we make, to better understand what types of atmospheric conditions, what types of hydrologic conditions lead to certain types of water level rise and fall.
All right, so what are people going to see this summer if they are vacationing out on the Great Lakes?
Well, by the time the heart of the summer gets here, June, July, and August, it looks like the lakes will be very similar to where they were a year ago, and that is a direct result of the very wet April we had significant water level rises, especially on Lakes Michigan, Huron, Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario. The water level rise in April was very much more than it usually goes up, and that will extend, through into summer, and by the time the lakes reach their peak, they'll be very near, or maybe even a couple inches above where they were a year ago, but that's still below their long-term average. Our peak water level this summer on Lakes Michigan, Huron will still probably be about 20 inches below its long-term average, but well above the record lows.
All right, Keith, thanks so much for joining us and explaining a little bit about the work that you do. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay.